Thanks for watching. This is a PolaRey, that one you can't buy, and this is the Losi RZR. If you have not seen it, I have built this thing a couple of months ago using a ton of spare parts just because I wanted to have a RZR, so I wanted to have a Polaris RZR side-by-side seater, a scale one, and accidentally, when I was building mine, this thing was also being developed. I know that I have seen a couple of people saying like, oh, HemiStorm built one and now Losi has also built one. I think this took them 18 months to develop. So they were really already deep into this when I was building mine 2 months ago. How did this come to be? Well, I had an Arrma fire team. I was also checking a lot of comments on the Arrma fire team, and people really did not seem to like it all that much, which I think was a bit unfair, because the Arrma fire team has a lot of cool body panels, has a lot of potential. You just need to unlock it, unleash it, and you need to see a tiny bit beyond perhaps what immediately turns you off. If you are turned off by, for example, the weaponry, the camo paint, just get a bit creative and turn it into something that you do want to have. At some point I saw that the wheelbase really matches the HEMA Ray, and that's when I thought, you know what, I'm going to build something that I really always wanted to have, which is a side-by-side seater. If you have not seen that video, I will link it over here. There's also a full build manual. So I did a full build series on this thing where you can really follow along with what I've done. Anyway, as I was putting this thing together, I didn't post anything about it on Instagram. Secretly over here in this studio, I was just kind of whittling away, combining parts, machining some parts, painting some stuff, and then in the very end, when I had a lot of footage also already shot, I contacted Horizon and I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna pull a prank. And they're like, what's the prank? I'm like, well, I combined a ton of stuff, made like a really cool car. I'm gonna pretend it's a real release if you guys think that that's okay. And they're like, okay, what is it? I said, well, it's a side-by-side seater. It's like a Polaris. They're like, how interesting. I said, yeah, right. And they're like, what are you gonna call it? And I said, I'm gonna call it, and I still needed to paint up the panels in the front. I said, I'm gonna call it the RZR Ray. And they're like, you can't. I'm like, well, what do you mean you can't? Because like I built this entire car, I put all of my social media on hold basically for 3-4 weeks to make this whole prank. They're like, well, you can. They're like, but you can't call it a RZR Ray. I'm like, oh, like that. They're like, yeah, because we're kind of working on something. I'm like, fine, you know, I will just go ahead and then call it a PolaRey. So that's how the PolaRey came about. Long story short, I launched a couple of teasers. I launched the unboxing video, and I thought that it would be way clearer that this thing was like a fire team on a HEMA Ray chassis. Also, everything linked to the HEMA Ray in the video description box, and also to some of the fire team stuff, I believe. But it caused a complete shitstorm because people thought that this was an actual release, which is a great compliment. Really, I could have not been any happier with the feedback that I've gotten. So, really cool. Now, seeing that we're 2 months later, 2-3 months later, this RZR Ray came out and it looks absolutely fantastic. It's actually everything that I've wanted to have in an RC vehicle, because if it weren't, then I would have not built the PolaRey. What are the things that I might have accidentally gotten right in my PolaRey unboxing? Because like in hindsight, there's a lot of stuff that is actually pretty much similar. Of course, there's a ton of stuff that is different. I had to base mine on the HEMA Ray, so I have a solid rear axle. I also needed to kind of work with what I had, so I only have a limited amount of means over here. I do have a lot of cool tools, but I don't have like thermoforming gear and stuff like that. So I needed to machine some panels. I also needed to machine some brackets to make it work with the rear suspension. But you know, overall, I have just been kind of working away on making this thing something that I really like, which is kind of a souped up 4-seater Pro R version of the Polaris RZR. So in my imaginary version, like the engine is pushed in front a tiny bit, so the passengers had to go. Then I got a big radiator on top of that. Then it has a solid rear axle. I'm like, I want to make something that's like completely tuned and completely crazy custom built for example, a king of hammers, that type of stuff. And with that, I was also, okay, you know what, I need to find out what licensing would be credible. So I got like Troy Lee on there, like historically that would make sense. Losi, of course, then RZR, Fox, put a Horizon logo on there, Baja Designs. I'm like, this could turn into something that, I don't know, I could kind of get away with. Like, don't overdo it on the paint scheme. So I did come up with something that looks nice, you know, but it could be factory. I guess if you start to really look close at it, you can see that all the masking is hand cut. But, you know, for a little prank, I thought I could definitely get away with some of that stuff. I had to, of course, work with the electronics from the HemiStorm Ray. Turns out that right now in this production version, you also have the electronics from the HemiStorm Ray. Sway bar sits in the exact same place as it sat in the HemiStorm Ray. So you have the same ESC, same motor, same steering servo, same radio, same receiver, and what I think is most important, the scale is the same. So I advertised my PolaRey as a 1/7 scale because that's where that fire team body and cage would sit. And lo and behold, this RZR Ray is a 6.7 scale. So also almost 7 scale. So this is a big chunk of toy, to put it like that. I had to limit the wheel size a tiny bit in order to make it look right. And then you see that on the RZR Ray also the wheel size is a tiny bit limited. I think that you could fit a larger tire on this PolaRey than you could fit on the RZR Ray. So that as well is a tiny bit funny, I guess. The interior panel as well, then I have a driver and a passenger in the PolaRey, and you find that as well in the RZR Ray. I do think that the fire team allowed for a tiny bit more detailing. Seeing that you have the plastic molded arms, you have a clear interior panel, so that allows me to put some more paint on there, and then over here this is just extruded plastic, so that kind of lacks more, I guess, in the detail department. Perhaps we will see Lexan interiors come back in the future. I hope so, because there's just a lot more possible in making it look really super scale. Another thing I did was I carried over all of the lighting from the HemiStorm Ray, with the exception of the tail lights, because for that I needed to go elsewhere to source it. And the RZR Ray also has lighting in the front in those headlights, and then also in the taillights. The taillights, they look a tiny bit similar. I, of course, needed to work with what I had in cutting away a lot of bodywork from the fire team in order to expose some taillights and making it look good. And another big obstacle that I had was that exhaust system that I needed to carry over from the HemiStorm Ray and then turn that into sort of like something that looks like a MagnaFlow back box or a MagnaFlow collector box, just to sort of obscure the lack of engine in the back over here and making it look a bit more credible that was pushed forward. The new RZR Ray, of course, has a trail suspension with radius arms and a diff in the back. There's a lot more possible over here. Had I had these parts available to me back when I built the PolaRey, I might have just used all of that stuff in the back. But you know what? I'm not sure, because I do still really like how the PolaRey looks. Performance-wise, well, of course, you know, this performs like a HemiStorm Ray, and this performs like its own vehicle. So this performs like a RZR Ray. Shorter wheelbase, different type of suspension setup. And I think that these could actually definitely coexist, because I don't see them biting each other at all. I'm really giddy to see where this new suspension setup takes Losi in the future, because seeing that I built this imaginary 4-seater, I hope that we will also see a 4-seater Pro R perhaps being released in the coming months or the coming year, because there's just so much possible under that new Polaris licensing that right now, with the availability of that rear suspension setup, I hope that they will really use it to the fullest. I'm a fan. Don't let anybody shy you away from trying to experiment with stuff, with trying to repurpose existing parts and turning them into something that you really like. I always do whatever the heck I feel like. I also did that with this PolaRey. So of course I knew immediately that using a solid rear axle would get me some criticism. But you know what, I really don't care. I just built what I want to have, and I hope you will do that too. If you want to build one of these yourself, it is fairly easy to execute. I made sure that It's not a complete mind-boggling process if you just follow the 3 videos that I've put out about building one of these PolaRey vehicles. Seeing that I have these 2 side-by-side seaters on my table and available to me is really cool, because both of these are something that I just want to have. So go build your own stuff. Perhaps you're going to tear this thing up, this RZR REY up, and you're going to turn it into a Jeep. Who is stopping you? Absolutely nobody. So go have fun. Go and repurpose stuff. I think that that's what the majority of the hobby is about. Of course it is fun to just paint up some lame body, put it on a truck that everybody else had, and then yours is just blue instead of red, or you have like something cool written on the side. But RC and really personalizing, customizing stuff is about way more than just having a rattle can, putting some paint on stuff. It's about really diving deep into stuff, throwing stuff together that other people won't use, and turning it into something that you love. So I hope you will have fun with that. Take that advice to heart. I will now go make this thing dirty so it will never look this good again. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up before you leave, because that greatly helps the channel out in being found. What also greatly helps out is subscribing if you haven't already. It is free. It will always stay free as well. If you have any questions or comments, stuff perhaps that you want to see more up close or more in detail, let me know in the comment section. Perhaps you have also executed a cool build or something. You can hit me up on Instagram or Facebook with your pictures. I would love to see what you have been up to. Thanks so much for watching. I hope I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.
Back on.